My Paludarium build is going great, but it's far from finished. I let the water cycle for a few days to leach out more tannins from the wood, which is why the water was so murky. And then I went to work with the drill to find a new flow for the water. Too much of it was spilling over the sides, and I wanted to try to keep it as central as possible so it wouldn't soak through the entire piece. This made the water murkier than ever before, and I needed to drain it out anyway for the next step. I decided that I was going to add a fog machine to the top of the water feature, so I had to carve out a depression for it. First, I made sure the cavity was large enough for the fog machine, and then I filled it with aquarium-safe silicone. I decided to go in raw with my fingers, so that way I could make sure I got an even spread. After that cured, I put the fog machine back in and gave it a quick test run. Next, I mixed some cocoa peat with some sphagnum moss. Then I layered the bottom of the paludarium with some paper towels. I grabbed a healthy dose of my favorite, black aquarium-safe silicone, and smothered and covered it section by section before adding the cocoa peat and sphagnum moss mixture. It's best to do it one little bit at a time so the silicone doesn't start to seal, and you can get as much of it attached as possible. I had the little side section finished, and I repeated the process at the top of the paludarium waterfall. I took more sphagnum moss and I soaked it in water so that way it would be easier to apply to the seams in between the cork bark. This will help retain moisture, and later when I add my wet moss mix, it's going to really help that moss grow and thrive. All the cork bark and sphagnum moss mixtures will be completely covered by a green moss wall, which should look pretty cool and contrast with the wood very well. After I vacuumed off the excess, I also tried to clean it out as best as I could. It's always going to be a little bit dirty for a while, and I gotta let that water soak through that wood so more tannins come out. I've probably got 2 or 3 more water changes ahead of me, and I gotta let all of that silicone gas off and cure for at least a week. It's definitely starting to come together, but I still had one final touch left to make. I wanted to close off the top of the water feature, so I did that with some more cork bark, silicone, and cocoa peat sphagnum moss mixture. The water still was flowing a little weird, but that was because there was a little bit of debris left to be sprayed out. And just like that, the construction phase of this paludarium is complete. Now I just have to let it all cure, and then I can add the moss wall and animals. What would you put in here when it's finished?